Hello, welcome. Kind of out of schedule, as you know, 8:30, past my bedtime, but we've got House of Racing here today for the Belgian GP, as hopefully it'll be a good race. If I'm not fully switched on, it's because I've just been disrupted from my wrist, but yeah. Apart from that, we've got a race today on our hands. So yeah, hopefully it will be a good one. As the voice chat's been suspended, typical stuff in a league lobby, you know. But yeah, hopefully we will be underway in the next minute or so. Just the chaos of this. Always fun. But yeah, let's try and get up some of the championship standings where possible. Stat zone, tier 1 drivers, tier 1 constructors. Perfect. As currently you have Camper as your championship leader, who is the Italian V-Carb that I'm currently highlighting. He's currently on 53 points after the opening 4 races, with Steg in, I believe, a reserve role. He's second in championship, with Pole in third, then Clipzy fourth in a Haas, who is this Dutchman I'm currently highlighting. Chimp in the Ferrari is fifth, with Lucas Champion in sixth. Ben Crook is seventh in the Alpine with his teammate Kieran in 8th. Then there's a Norwegian of LWFU for 9th, and then 10th is a Williams of Michel, or Mikel. Don't judge my pronunciation, but that is the top 10 in your drivers. Currently, in terms of constructor standing, it's Williams on 70 points, with Sauber only 10 behind. Currently, as things stand, you've got both Williams and both Saubers here for Spa, so hopefully it will be a great battle. But do not rule out Alpine. They're only a singular point back from Sauber, with V-Carb a further 6 back in 4th, with Haas again 1 point off the Misano base team. Then in 6th, it's Mercedes, not too far back at all. It's rather compact, 7 point splitting Haas and Mercedes. And then it's Ferrari a further 10 back, tied with Red Bull over 7th. Then it's Aston Martin in 9th on 30 points, and McLaren averaging about 1.2 points every event. They are currently in 10th with 8 points. So that's a brief run through of the standings, as I believe the ready up is due in a moment's time. But yeah, hopefully it will be a great race, as most drivers have now readied up. The action is about to begin here in Spa. Hopefully it's going to be a very, very interesting race, as last time I commentated in Spa, it was hectic in terms of on-track duels. There was about a 7 way fight over 10th or whatever. So yeah, hopefully this does stack up for a good event. There's some familiar names if you're a long-term fan of my commentary. You've got Limbless Draco, who's known for his Mercedes role in SRL. You've also got, well, that's about it. But yeah, however, as per usual, I've got my drink and hopefully a bit of rain to spice things up here in Belgium, with the qualifying about to start now. It is a wet qualifying, which is going to be very interesting to say the least. Hopefully we will see 1 or 2 crashes throughout the course of the weekend. Spa known to take its victims at least to a race usually, but only time will tell. You've got 18 minutes, that's now 17 minutes 40 left on the clock, as we wait for the first driver to come out on track. As you can see just at the very end of the pit lane, it's one of the Haases. It's either Clipzy or Constella, which I believe it's the other one. Yes, it is. Your first drive out on Haas, out on track, is the American-based manufacturer with a Mercedes just tucked in behind him, fourth of Trent. Of course, these current grid positions are based off their player numbers, so Constella probably being somewhere around 2 or whatever, and then likes of Lucas around, let's say 40 for the sake of a number. However, numerous drivers heading out on an outlap. This is going to be one of those sessions where it's all about getting one crucial lap in, because it's a 2-minute trip on the outlap and the in-lap. That's 4 minutes wasted of your session. Then if you think about another 2-minute flyer, that's 6 minutes per run. You can only do about 2.2 of them in a session. So yeah, time is very much against the drivers, because of course filtering in, limping in and out of pit lane, changing tyres and repairing wing damage really does drop the opportunity of doing 3 runs. So it's either a long run that lasts all quali, or it's 2 rather small runs that lasts just about 5-10 minutes each. Face orange biting nose. With now your first lap of the evening about to start, Constella rounding out final corner. He's done his preparation for this run of some form, as now heading up into turn 1, battery being deployed. It's all going to be about the perfection of each and every corner here. Turn 1, slight bit of understeer, but then you can see the slippery surface just leading to oversteer on the exit. Battery gonna get deployed all the way down towards Radion de la Rouge we go. Can he stick it flat? Yes, he will. It takes a lot of driver confidence to do something like that here in Spa, with one of the most dangerous corners in the rain in the world, and he managed to make it stick like it's nothing. As you now go through the following chicane, as we head through the middle sector now. It's an absolute best sector 1, of course being the first sector 1 of the evening, as now Constella now trying to hug the inside line, really start to set up the left-hander that leads you down into Pouon. But as you can see, the rain being fairly heavy, you're going to be limping the car through each and every corner, just because you don't want to unsettle it too much through Pouon. Keeps it rather high speed, as you should. Heading now down in towards Stavolo we go, through the right, tries correcting the car into that left, fighting the car on exit as always, and now through the first part of Stavolo. Now through the second part we go. It's again absolute best in the middle sector, heading up through Blanchimont we now go with this ass. It's a race of time more than anything. With now Constella about to finish the first lap of the session. Is he going to keep it clean through the bus stop? If he goes ever so slightly wide, he won't be able to. However, it's a massive snap on the exit. It's going to be a 1:55.1 to finish the lap off, with Trent now finishing his run, going into the final 2 corners now, just trying to keep the pace as low as possible. Misses the first apex in the bus stop, nails the second one. Now it's foot to the floor again to the line. It's a 1:56.1, directly a second off pole, as we will go to Camper, your current championship leader, going through the final corner now, really trying to keep the throttle pinned, as it's now a little sprint to the line. It's a 1:55.132, 200ths of a second quicker, as Chimp ends up finding an extra 3/10 on that. Hugo a further 10 in the making, as we will ride on board with Slicks, as it's not rather slick on track out there, as of course the rain, meaning it's one of the wet compounds in use for all at the moment who are on track. It's a set of intermediates. However, can it be a slick lap? Heading through the final 2 corners now, takes it right, takes it left, now foot to the floor, trying to manage the exit. No slap unlike others, but it's a 55.8, with Kieran also going to the top of the timing table, with Jenga Boy now starting their run in the Sauber. We might as well watch the whole thing instead of a bunch of this spared run, as I believe that was Pole shifting up to 5th, or Ben going up into 4th, with a Haas now heading to the line. Clipzy fastest of all by 0.6 of a second. A mega run by the Haas driver. That's what they need to try and draft themselves back into this championship fight. However, Jenga Boy now shimming his car through the chicane, slightly big step out of the rear as he went through the low speed of turn 6. Now trying to keep the car to the inside, as it's time to set up for Pro-1. There's the car of the Aston Martin, I believe Limitless Draco, letting the Sauber by. Jenga Boy now heading towards the final sector of your lap. It's a fairly complex lap, especially in the rain. It's so difficult to perfect a wet run at Spa Francorchamps. However, it's really a make or break session. Absolute best at the end of the middle sector, going to power their way, completely steamroll up through Blanchimont. Can they keep their foot pinned? Lifts off the ERS, as you don't want to go too trigger happy while turning left. Usually ends in car spinning. However, final 2 corners now. What can the Sauber do? Has a slight correction mid bus stop, as up to line. What's it going to be? It's a 54.4. It's 0.3 off Clipzy, who is currently the man to beat here, as Constella, he's finding a lot of time in the Haas. A whole second improvement. A whole second makes it a Haas 1-2 as things stand. Will the Haas be able to do it? However, it's going to all be based off how these final 2 corners are executed. Of course, no deploy left to use, so it's all going to be about raw pace and exits. Up to line we go. It's a 53.7, 0.4 clear of the Haas, as Kieran has set an absolute best first sector. You can tell the track's drying, the laps are getting so much quicker. Everyone is setting at least a personal best sector, as the Alpine, who said they're going to win in the Discord, currently on a run that could put them in prime position to do so. However, the Williams now 3rd and 5th. You can just see that improvements are coming in quite swiftly, with Kieran now going downhill a bit towards Stavlo. Chimp fastest. Hugo even quicker. He's again just over a tenth clear of the Ferrari in P2 this time, as it's currently Sauber 1-7. But again, still 8.5 minutes for that all to change here. We've only gone through just over half of the session, and there's still one driver yet to do a run. However, what can Kieran do in the Alpine? He's currently 9th. Big snap on entry, rear locking, car rotating under the braking, which helps rotation for the bus stop to the line, and it's a 53.7. That rear locking probably cost him the 3 temps. That could have gave him the lap he wants, as Clipzy currently finding 2 temps on his previous best. However, it does say reduced harvesting, so it's rather safe to assume he is not on a run. On the other hand, is there someone who's on a run? It's going to be VOR Awkward, who's gone absolute best in that middle sector. Can the McLaren boost themselves up the pecking order? This team has only scored 8 points this season. Could they bring a massive points haul home in the 5th race of the championship? Going into the final corner now, just trying to keep it all settled on the throttle. Don't want to snap out too much to the line, and it's only 11th with a 54.6. With the next guy to do a run is Kookaburra. Going through the final corner now, it's going to be a dash to the line. It's going to be a valid lap, but it's only quick enough for 17th here. It's a 55.2 at this current stage. Finn currently going 2 temps up at the end of the first sector. Can that McLaren also promote themselves up the field? No, because they've invalidated their run. Constella, however, also finding a bit of time, as Pole has now taken provisional pole with a 52.8, 6 temps clear of the current best, well, second best lap on track as it is now from Hugo. Constella working his way through Pouon down to the final sector that Haas goes. Can they try and reassert themselves towards the top? Of course, the final sector, all about the corners. As the track dries, you're just going to get quicker and quicker through the low speed, and quicker and quicker through the high speed as well, as it's an absolute best in the middle. 2/3 of a second improvement from where they currently stand, and with that it will give them a top 2. But it's all going to be about whether or not they can keep it clean. No deploy left to use. Going into the final 2 corners now, trying to keep the nerves down, as it's a final dash to the line. As what will it be? It's going to be provisional pole, but not by much at all. Less than, I want to say, 4/100ths of a second, which is a mega lap for the Haas, which puts them 1-3 as things stand, with Ben now on a lap of his own. Can the Alpine possibly set something representative for their team? Currently 3rd in the championship, 11 points off the Racing Bulls. No, not Racing Bulls. My mind's gone blank with who's at top. But it's Haas. There we go. It's came back to me, as Ben currently working his way down through the middle sector. No, it's not even Haas. I've just checked, and it's Williams, with Hugo in the Sauber, 10 points off the Williams team. Currently, if things were to finish how they start, it'll be 10 points gained just by Hugo over Paul on their own. So that is going to be an interesting storyline to follow throughout this weekend. Of course, Haas also having both Constella and Clipzy up there with 2nd and 4th fastest times at the moment. Big snap there for the Alpine of Ben, as they work their way now down through Stavlo. What's it going to be at the end of the middle? It's an absolute best for the Alpine. Big snap there as they get up on the curves. They're going to back out of their run. Keeps the Alpines only 7th and 8th as things stand, with your championship leader currently not even being quick enough for the top 8, as they sit 9th in the V-Carb. We're going to actually have a look at what's happened there. I believe that's Kieran who's had a moment. Yes, it is, as he seems to have found himself fully rotated through the bus stop chicane. We did see rear locking on the previous run from the Alpine, and that proves to be the case again with 3.5 minutes roughly left now. Jenga Boy, it's a personal best in the first sector, not an absolute best however, with the Sauber now working their way down through the middle sector of this lap. It's all about technical accuracy for the Sauber as to whether or not they can put themselves towards the top with their teammate Hugo, but only time will tell, as the time very much is falling out of their grasp, with Jenga Boy trying to keep it as high speed as they could through Poland. You could see a little bit of deploy going through the exit as they continue to harvest throughout the low speed segment, just really trying to stack it all up for the run towards bus stop. It's an absolute best 1.7 seconds improvement. That will put them right on the back of their teammate. Could it be both Saubers on the front row maybe, as drivers are starting to leave the pit lane by the looks of it once again. There's a Haas limping down the pit lane as a Lucas goes to 4th in the Red Bull. Through the final 2 corners, Jenga full on driving it like it's a rally car, completely chucking it through the final few corners to the line. It's a 51.9, absolute best of the session. Current provisional pole with 2 minutes 25 left. Is that going to change? As in order to be able to set a lap, you need to be out on track with 2 minutes left really, for a chance to do some brief tyre warm-ups, as it looks like Hugo will not be able to make it out. As he actually now comes out, it's going to be very close to the end of the session. Chesney on a run. What will the Ferrari do come the end of the first sector? They're actually going to pull aside and let the Aston Martin by, so it shows they don't have much intent. But that Aston, limitless Draco, what can the Singapore driver do? Going through the middle sector, there's, if I'm right, the Mercedes of Harry letting them by. It may have been Trent, but hey ho. As that Aston really looking rather unsettled through the lower speed, also medium speed as well. The high speed, however, you could just see how he reins it in. It's almost like it's on rails in high speed, but a bit more on ice through low speed. That's a great way to put Spa in the rain, as you could just see how much the car just aquaplanes out. The tyres complaining, don't want to turn in, as the Aston Martin driver really having to give it his all. He's 2 seconds up at the moment from his current best, as it would be. It would only put him 7th approximately, but there's still 1 sector left. Well, now 2 corners left, as they've gone through the third to last corner of Blanchimont. Ignore my siblings in the background. Fairly noisy house when it wants to be, as it looks like Limitless Draco has chosen to go for a secondary run on the back of it. It's still going to be quick enough for 4th for that Aston Martin. You're going to just see a bunch of kerfuffle as everyone trying to set up their run. You're going to get it with the lead of the group at the moment. Actually, you know what, let's go with the lead on track of Harry, who leaves the middle sector. It's 1.6 improvement from where they currently stand. However, big mistake there. That's going to forfeit them probably a 10th or 2, as they got onto the gravel trap, getting under throttled, unsettled the back end a bit, as now they work their way through Blanchimont up towards the bus stop chicane. Are they going to be able to stop the car to perfection? Yes, they do. Manages to really use the curbs as they go across the apexes very elegantly up to line. And it's only 3rd. That's his session over and done with. I believe that is awkward going through the final 2 corners now. What can McLaren do? Can they promote themselves up into top 10 maybe? Big wobble there, as it's only going to be 5th, losing them probably up to half a second, with Kookaburra going through the final 2 corners now. This is a lap that has to count. They're only 6 tenths up, however. What's it going to be? It's only 13th, as that is going to be such agonising, as Mikel Now into the final two corners, you're about to witness the whole train of cars in a wild time up to the line for the Williams. It's going to be second fastest. Nothing can beat Jenga yet. Luke, fourth fastest. As Clipzy going through the final corner now, it's going to be fastest of all. Limitless Draco, big sprint, sixth fastest. With now, you can see Chesney rounding out final corner. You could just see about 3 other cars all following through. Chesney to 8th, the Williams only 11th, Constella to the top. You can't really keep up with this as Chimp now heading up to the line. The Ferrari promotes himself up to 7th with the personal and absolute best final sector. Hugo dives into the pits to only take 9th here, with currently, as things will stand for the main race, an Alpine 1-4 and a Haas 2-3, with your current constructors leaders 7th and 16th. It's gone absolutely wrong for the Williams duo, but it's gone absolutely right for the Haas duo, 5th in the constructors and both cars in the top 3. An absolute mega qualifying for the constructor, as they are hoping to lift themselves up through the pecking order. They're only 18 points off Williams in this constructors race, as that is qualifying over here in Spa. So just a quick rundown of your grid. It's Kieran on pole with Constella in second, Clipzy third, Ben fourth, Jenga Boy fifth, Camper 6th, your championship leader, slightly out of place, Mikael 7th, Chimp 8th, Hugo 9th, Lucas 10th, Limitless Draco in 11th, Harry Beams 12th, Chesney 13th, Finn leading the McLarens in 14th, Awkward 15th, Paul 16th, Trent 17th, Kookaburra 18th, and Slick, not a really slick session at all, in 19th for the main race. As now it's time for the drivers to pick out their strategies. What's going to be the favoured starting tyre? If I was to put my money on anything, it will probably have to be the mediums here. But then, knowing Spa, there's always a little chance of rain. We could see rain come late in the race, forcing quite a few to start on the hard compounds and try and stand their track position as the conditions deteriorate, then come out better in the long run. Or it could just be one of the boring Spa races where it's dry throughout and everyone sticks to a one stop. As you can see, quite a bit of porpoising on that Haas car, lining up in third place, just bobbling up and down. And it's not even on the throttle yet, it's just stationary in its grid box, being rather trigger happy with the circuit. As it's now settled down, that's a good sign. The Haas driver clearly ran out of energy and now a bit more down to earth, down in the slumps again. However, the flight sequence begins here in Spa. Alpine to Haas, Haas to Alpine. Into turn 1, we now go. Lights out, with Kieran leading, but Constella round the outside. Brilliant start for the Haas duo. You could just see how they were able to get the throttle on so much better, as now heading down towards Radion de la Rouge. Can they hang it on? Yes, they will, as Kieran probably waiting to pounce into the next set of corners. You can see a flurry of cars. There's some drivers even trying to make overtakes as it goes free abreast. Kieran, Clipzy and Constella into fourth corner, and it's going to be Constella who leads in a Haas 1-2. Alpine, despite starting 1-4, they're now 3-4, with Haas is rising up and leading in this early doors. There's the Williams of Mikel having a look to the inside of Harry, trying to work their way back up into 7th after losing that place in the initial stage. They failed to do so. Chimp lobbing Hugo wide to reassert themselves into 9th. There's going to be Lucas having a little peek into Pouon. Hugo goes wide, but Finn goes slightly wider, as you could see. A whole new planet has been discovered by that McLaren as he's gone a tad wide, with Hugo fighting back against Lucas and hangs on to their 10th place. But Lucas round the outside through the first part of Stavlo gets the job done rather easy indeed. With that Red Bull now into P10, they can just try and recuperate and focus up on regaining the 2 tenths lost from DRS Rangers. There's Clipzy defending Kieran to the inside on the entry of bus stop, going to take a wider line through second part, gives them a great run up into turn 1, which is La Source. Can they possibly go for an overtake on their teammate? They're going to stay in formation, play it smart, as Ben having a brief consideration of going for a move, with Jenga Boy doing same thing on Kieran, your pole sitter, now 4th in this race. It's been a nightmare start, as you could see there. I believe that was Eliminus Draco overtaking Paul through Radion de la Rouge, as they now go wheel to wheel with Hugo heading up to the start of the middle sector. It's a drag race between the Aston Martin and the Sauber, going to continue the fight through, as Constella has had a crash by the looks of it, which will end the Haas's bids of a championship, with now Clipzy being the last Haas driver to compete for a possible point, maybe even the win. As you could see there, Hugo and Paul. Hugo losing a lot of ground as there's been contact. Paul goes round, clips Finn, who I believe has had a massive spin. Yes, he has, as a result. That's the McLaren, who was almost up into 11th for a brief moment, down to 18th, as this is going to be the chance to actually put up your starting tyres and that. As you can see, everyone's on a set of mediums, proving that that was just your favoured strat. Everyone going to basically be in a single file line for the rest of it. Constella goes at Ben, please leave the league if you can't race wheel to wheel. That probably summarises what's happened in that fight, as Ben goes fastest. He's now got DRS on Clipzy. Can that Alpine promote themselves up into lead? Would probably rather infuriate the Haas driver of Constella if he does so on this 3rd lap of the race, as it does give Alpine 2-3 once again. Big chance to take the lead in constructors, as now it's going to be a micro drag race down the Kennel Straight to the outside. Peels the Alpine for turn 5 round the outside, just not able to try and stick the nose in, as it will stay 2nd place for the time being, with the fight primarily being between the top 2. However, a massive train dropping all the way down to 10th. Then Hugo, who seemed quick, rather struggling in these conditions, which makes me possibly think he was on a wet setup in quali and then realised it's Parc Fermé, so you can't get off it, as Hugo drifting rather wide there. That's probably his first, maybe even 2nd track limit strike of the weekend, with the Sauber taking a massive toll in this race. Someone who was so consistently quick in the earlier doors of qualifying, just really falling off the cliff edge here in the race in Spa. With this pecking order split in 2 battles, 1st to 10th and then 11th to 17th, as there's awkward round the outside of Blanchimont. Absolute stellar stuff for the McLaren. However, is Hugo going to be able to fight back? They know better. They're going to hang on, as there's Chesney overtaking Trent. I believe that was actually defending Trent, with a big snap there by Kookaburra. Makes him pouncing off the track. Slicks promotes themselves up into 16th place, as you can now actually see Clipzy, as we will ride on with the rear end of the Haas, as there goes Ben to the outside. Attempted it last lap. He's ahead before braking this lap. Just such an easy move, which is so favourable here in Spa. Just set off the car ahead, slightly offline, and then you can just breeze straight by, as there's something that has happened through the fifth corner. I believe that's Hugo and Paul, the Williams, having a rather big spin. I believe that's contact with the Sauber on entry, hence why the Sauber has drifted miles out from the group ahead, as it does not seem like any damage has actually been sustained in that kerfuffle. But that does also allow Awkward to slightly recuperate. He's now got 1.5 over Chesney. So after a rather awkward set of corners there to start the middle sector, they can calm down a bit and just focus their minds back on what is ahead of them. For the sake of the McLaren, it's going to be the sole point of 10th place, with Clipzy now making their way up towards the start of the 5th lap here. You've got another 17, so do not leave. There's going to be plenty more of action. For example, Jenga Boy versus Beams and Camper, the V-Car, promoting themselves to 4th, as there's Harry to the inside of the Sauber, and that is 5th for the Mercedes. A move made simple for the Silver Arrows. However, can they dart up towards Radio and Delusions? They're ahead. Yes, they can. With now the fight going back to the leaders. Clipzy doing exactly what the Alpine did to them a previous lap, as that's rather easy, with Harry to the outside of Camper. Again, nice and simple, just cruises the car by, and then gets the more ideal line, better traction. And that's basically a summary of what happens when you go to the outside at the end of the Kennel Straight. It's almost a guaranteed move when it's fighting at the fore end of a train. Awkward slowly but surely catching this group, as he was about 3.6 off a lap and a half ago. He's now 2.2, so the McLaren could very much come into frame as this race progresses. But for now, you've already got a good 6 car, make it actually 7 as a result of my incorrect calculations, car fight over it, with the McLaren now within a second and a half, pretty much going to get DRS for the next lap on them, as they all go through Blanchimont in single file. It's going to be a matter of fact who burns up the tyres most here, as there's Elimina Straco to the outside of Lucas, gets job done. There's the Ferrari of Chimp making contact with Mikel, as the Williams hangs on to 7th place after also trying to get a move on Jenga, but just wasn't able to master it, as Kookaburra and Paul into the pits here. A very early stop, probably putting them onto the 2 here, with another set of mediums maybe. Trent on a set of hards at the moment, but Kookaburra goes to the hard compounder tyres. What does the Williams driver do? It's another set of hards for them, as now the McLaren is going to make things rather awkward in this fight over the points positions, as now there's a chance one of them misses out, with the McLaren in 11th, now within half a second of Lucas, but massive snap there on the exit there, and that sees him in the ball. And back to square one is the safest way to put it, as Chesney going to get the run into Pouon, going to carry high top speed, thus allowing the Ferrari to creep into DRS range once again of the McLaren. So shall the battle commence up there. Kieran drops to 3rd and drops out of DRS range from Ben and Clipzy. This race really starting to die out for the Alpine, as the top 3 really seeming like they're a lot more comfortable with the tyre conditions. As now we start the 7th lap here, with approximately a third of the way into this Belgian GP. the medium's going to start screaming out for help between now and I want to say lap 10, which would be an ideal pit window. As a bunch of action happening in the pits here. There's an Alpine in the pits, Sauber, Ferrari, Red Bull, Aston Martin, and even the other Sauber of Hugo, all darting in, all taking a set of hards, as Clipzy now gaining on the Alpine to the inside this time. An unorthodox move, but makes it easy, as that is Clipzy up into the race lead here in Spa. A good overtake to match a great battle for the lead here. Places swapping almost every other lap. It's going to be a matter of fact who's going to be second on the final lap, because whoever is entering the Kennel Straight is almost definitely going to get the move done and promote themselves into the lead, and 9 out of 10 times wins the race. But for now, you do have this slowly splitting up, as of course, if you haven't noticed, Kieran has pitted for the hards. He's going to try and undercut and gain track position that way on the leaders. So do one of them react? If I was Ben, I'd probably hang out a bit longer. If I was Clipzy, I'd react, because Alpine have got strategy over you. You can't, precisely as I've said, Clipzy pits, but Ben follows. Can the Alpine pull off a quicker pit stop than the Haas here today? If they can, then it will be the Alpine, possibly into a 1-2, if Kieran has gained enough on this fly. It's a set of hards going on to the Alpine, a set of hards also for the Haas, as the Haas will be leading, and by a much larger margin than previously. Going through turn 1, you can see Kieran to the outside of him on the pit exit. Ben having a rather scruffy exit. The Alpine swap places. Ben most likely won't be happy with how Alpine have managed to pick Kieran, and Kieran undercuts. But Ben going to get DRS on his teammate. He's going to the outside, and it's just a simple reversal of positions, with Ben back into the fight for the lead, just inside a second. When I say just, I mean very much, literally 8 tenths. It was 9 tenths at the end of the Kennel Straight, with Chimp holding up a massive queue once again. It's rather like a game of follow the leader here. It's just one big train at the back with the, main group up front. But if you haven't noticed, Limitless Draco is the only driver yet to pit. If a safety car comes out, this is going to play to absolute perfection for the Aston Martin. If a safety car doesn't come out, it's safe to assume they're going to be closer to Slicks than Hugo, as they will be losing massive amounts of time every lap they stay out. They're rough. We can actually see the delta come the end of this lap if they do take the line, which they will do so in the Aston Martin. They are currently lapping 2.3 off their personal best per lap, whereas Kieran, he's lapping quicker. He's just set a personal best of the race. So if we were to say everyone else is matching their personal best on their new compounds, Limitless Draco's falling back about 2 seconds every single lap. Every single minute and 48 seconds, let's say, he loses 2 seconds to the fights behind him. As Clipzy manages for once not to actually have an overtake it from an Alpine into that chicane, rather relaxing to say the least, just knowing the Haas has got that slight more track position, allowing them to hang on with a bit more ease. Camper currently leading this train. It was Chimp only a lap ago. They did make a move which we missed out on at the end of the Kennel Straight. However, there's a great chance another move is inbound, with the V-Carb trying their best for the Constructors' Championship. Current Drivers' Championship leader, they could lose quite a few points from their rivals as things were to stand. But the bigger concern is Racing Bull's stance in the Constructors, because Haas are only 1 point behind them, and with the current results the Haas would actually overtake them by 7 points and very much close up to the Sauber, who are currently only scoring 4 points here. Into the pits goes Limitless Draco. Let's see where the Aston Martin comes out. A set of hards coming on. They're going to have better tyre wear, better tyre delta, as it seems like they're going to come out just behind Awkward, just ahead of Kookaburra. But it's going to be a fight on the pit exit. The Aston Martin right behind the McLaren. It's going to be a race down through Rayon de la Rouge. We now go. Is the Limitless Draco going to be close enough to even go for a move with these cold tyres? With DRS, it does take about a lap for them to heat up here in Belgium, as to the outside dips a wheel into the grass. True Iceman there for the Singapore-based driver, as he promotes himself to 11th, while Paul going for a brief moment 3 wide with Chesney and Kookaburra. The Williams up into 13th place now, as it's still one massive DRS train in that midfield, which is probably going to be the epitome of this race. Clipzy, personal best come the end of the first 2 sectors. That Haas are looking rather favourable of setting a new personal best come the end of this lap. Time will tell, however. You could just see the 2 Alpines in single file formation, probably plotting their next attack in this race, with the Haas now taking it corner by corner, lap by lap, as they're practically matching their personal best, only a 10th off at the end of that previous lap round. Clipzy now with about 7 tenths advantage going over the detection zone. Both Alpines going to get DRS as they climb up the hill onto the Kennel Straight. Now is Ben going to be able to close the gap enough? It looks like the Haas on the hards just able to build out enough of a delta through the final 2 sectors or whatever to hang on a lap by lap basis. If things are to continue this way, they should be fine, as Slicks has pulled the plug on his weekend. He's called quits. He knew it's kind of over from here, and that will be the Aston Martin 18th place and out of the race. So chances of points 0 for that Aston Martin. The other Aston Martin currently sitting in 11th and 2.8 out from the Mercedes of Trent. But it shouldn't be too long until that Aston catches with the tyre delta in his favour. Clipzy, personal best, first 2 sectors. He's gained about a 10th through that middle sector. He's, again, as you can see, just pulling away from the Alpines, as Ben really has to try and get close here. He needs the exit of a lifetime on the outro of the lap, but a big snap rear locking into that final corner has caught so many drivers off guard. We saw it with Kieran during qualifying, but as a result he's not going to get that exit. He drops to 6 tenths back again. Clipzy drifting that car through La Source, just showing he wants to give it some sauce and finesse in his driving style. It's about half a second as they climb up through Rayon de la Rouge onto Kennel Straight once again. It's about 4 tenths as DRS is deployed. Kookaburra into the pits and calls it quits as well. However, 4.5 tenths still isn't enough for the Alpine to go for a move. Finn has also pulled a plug on his race. That's 4 drivers down, 3 of them all in the previous lap, as Constella all taking 1 lap to finish their race, which is a rather impressive thought. As now the race continues, you've got about 10 laps more of action or whatever here. It's a matter of time as to whether or not Clipzy is able to hang on against both Alpines. As things do stand, Alpine will take to the top of the standings, bagging at least 33 points in this race, as it's safe to assume they aren't going to get overtaken by Harry in the Mercedes or Camper in the V-Carb. They're all in their own DRS train towards the midfield, as this race really about these three. It's going to be one or the others, with now lap 13 commencing. Ben has a good exit out of the final corner, however La Source, the Haas, able to get so much more traction through, pulls the gap back to 6/10 up the hill, and it's about half a second-ish or whatever. So it's just going to be a repeat of the previous lap. However, is Ben going to be close enough? Again, not in any way, shape or form close enough, as that's another lap where they will wait. Harry to the inside of Camper. Is that the Mercedes up into P5? They're going to continue fighting. A bit of contact there. The Mercedes backing out just because they didn't want to have it end up in a crash. With Mikel to the inside of Chimp. Complete elbows out of Williams, trying to muscle their way through. The Ferrari, massive snap of oversteer there, goes into side pod of the Williams, but then ends up settling down for 7th place there, with Limitless Draco into 10th. 2 seconds off this train again, with Awkward just behind them by about a second or whatever. As yeah, this race really going to be a slow burner. It seems like it's going to stay dry between now and the checkered flag, because it just won't make sense why some drivers have chosen to make a second stop in this race if it's not going to go to rainy conditions. As to the inside goes Harry. He has a glance, just realises he ain't close enough. He's going to have to try and rethink it, try and get DRS, which he does have up to turn 1. Is the Mercedes going to go for a lunge? Again, looks to the inside, trying to unsettle Camper, as you could see Lucas doing so with the sound of Jenga. It's really a game of strategy, a bit like Jenga, to say the least. As now up the hill, it's safe to assume Ben doesn't go for a move on Clipzy, which it looks like he hasn't, but the Mercedes, so much more traction in the high speed complexes, able to get the job done really easy against the Racing Bull, as they are just struggling with their race in general. Camper, despite championship leader, hasn't been able to consistently pace with the front runners, kind of been in a land of their own with this middle group, showing that the top 3, who you are now with, as they are about to enter Blanchimont and Stavelot, they're just in their own heads really. They're just imagining a completely different race. They're 10 seconds clear of 4th place, and they've been scrapping relentlessly from the first lap. I've probably seen more overtakes out of these 3 than I've seen from 4th down to 10th so far this race, and they're still 10ish seconds clear of, well, the Mercedes, who currently leads that train, just showing how strong they have been in a small pack. Using logic of like NASCAR and that, the bigger the pack, the quicker you gain on the car ahead, because it'll be DRS swapping throughout the race. The lead of that train changing every lap, but they're fighting each other more relentlessly through the middle sector than these lot are. It's really a move through the first corner, and that's it, as Ben again starting to close up on Clipzy. just not able to get close enough once again, with Harry now has the duties of defending camper. He's already made the call to the inside, camper to the outside, the V-carb up into fourth, but you can see the moment Harry loses place, he comes straight across back onto the racing line, because they don't want to forfeit any more places. So it's really like, you need to stay at the front of the train. If you drop any further back, then you're in trouble. As a Limitless Draco, brilliant move there down the inside on Jenga. He's slicing his way up through this midfield pack. He was able to nurture his tyres more in the first stint. He's now got 3 lap better tyres than the others on the hards, 2 lap better tyres than the medium runners, who are really going to struggle for the remainder of this race. Could be a good shout to put Limitless Draco as a possible top 5 finisher here, with of course the top 3 practically guaranteed, unless one of them crashes between here and the finish, as I think it could very much be Camper or Harry who joins the Limitless Draco in the top 5. Aston Martin wouldn't mind it at all, currently being 9th in the championship, sitting a bit off par with Red Bull and Ferrari, who are 5 points ahead of them. Should give them that delta over Red Bull. Maybe not as much Ferrari, who have currently poised in 7th, hasn't really shifted from there all race. As we will quickly tune over to the lead group, Ben again rather close, laps and opportunities really ticking away, as this main straight is pretty much your sole opportunity across a race distance. Ben getting a bit unsettled with the throttle and unable to with the 4th and 5th. Dueling, there's contact. Camper makes some contact on the apex with Harry. Harry ghosting as a result. And that's Mikel into 5th. But the Mercedes darts to the inside. Limitless Draco again slices himself past Chimp. A rather easy move, but it's because the Mercedes unsettled that Ferrari, caught him off guard a bit, and then Limitless Draco went, he's a bit iffy, I'm going to just send it now, and he aces it in doing so, with this really becoming a race for that Aston Martin to enjoy. He may have struggled a lot in the first stint, knew he had to take the tyres longer, that's why he sat at the back, then he pitted, gets the tyre delta he wants, and then it makes it so much easier for him to navigate it to the end. He's more likely to finish on a 1-stop than anyone else in this race. Everyone else could be in puncture territory come the end. For the sake of Camper, Mikel and Harry, they've practically got to pit again. It's so difficult to last the whole race, as there's a Limitless Draco, big switch back on Harry. He didn't even need DRS there. That just shows how much stronger of a car he now has with that tyre delta. Jenga round the outside of awkward as the McLaren trying to push themselves up into the points. The Sauber, who started towards the top 5, now in 11th here, which is going to be heartbreaking for the Sauber team. They're currently 11th and 15th. They struggled a bunch here today, as there's Chimp finally shifting themselves back up into 7th, and this time in amongst the medium runners. The medium runners kind of been controlling this train ever since it reformed after the pit phase, and now because of Limitless Draco starting to make his charge through, the Ferrari has now had a massive opportunity to start slicing their way up through, as the medium start becoming about half a second slower per lap than the hards. Come the end of the race, there'll be about 1.2 second delta in favour of the hard runners over the mediums, just showing how long the medium drivers have to really manage it for. You saw Limitless Draco only went to about lap 10 on the mediums, and then they pitted. For the sake of Camper, Mikel and Harry, if they were to go to the end, they have to go about 14 laps, as I believe it's starting to rain. It's starting to get a bit damp here by the looks of it. That's where it starts to pay into favour of the medium runners. They took that stop there on the mediums, the tyres starting to struggle, but they choose to dive into the pits, as you can now see visible raindrops on that TV pod. Lucas to the outside of Harry, up into P6 maybe, but the Mercedes really going to try and fight it back. Down the hill we go to Radion de la Rouge. Is the Red Bull going to have enough of top speed to get the job done? Yes, they will. The Mercedes just slots in behind, as intermediates already being picked out by some of the lead groups, as Camper, Mikael, Paul and Hugo all onto a set of Inters, and the raindrops have really just started, as there goes Harry off the track, cuts the corner, 10-second penalty goes the Mercedes way. It's safe to assume they will not be scoring many points at all here today in Spa. Rather disappointing, as now that Mercedes starting to struggle on the damper patches, snapping the car everywhere they go now. It's really about time that those tyres do fall off the cliff edge, and I think it's happened now, when they least want it to happen. But you can see Camper is actually gaining time on those Inters. It's not by too much. He's only gained about 3 tenths to Trent, who's on the hard compounds in this lap so far. Does any of the leaders go to the pit lane? Into the pits goes Clipzy from the lead. Ben stays out. Kieran also tunes in to the pit lane with Limitless Draco 4th place at the moment. That is a mega statement for the Aston Martin. Are they going to gamble it to the end? They've stayed out, so but Chimp will pit. Awkward stays out. Lucas into the pits, Jenga into the pits, Chimp into the pits, Chesney also doing so. Camper starting to really catch up with this race, as it seems like Harry has had a big moment. He's now dropped in amongst the intermediate runners. With Clipzy, he's got rather decent placement. He's going to get held up for a bit behind Limitless Draco, but the sooner he can get past that Aston Martin, the sooner he can focus back up on chasing down Ben. But for Ben's race, if he can just go to the end, he may actually win. Harry has taken DNF. He's gave up on those mediums, as now the Haas probably thinking about where they can overtake the Aston Martin, because that Aston Martin's going to be losing a bit of time to Ben as this lap progresses, based off the 16-second delta between the two at the moment. For Ben, he could very much pit and probably come out ahead of Clipzy because of the assistance from the Aston Martin. Is it favourable though? Because there's only 3 laps after this. Are they going to lose that much time? No. The Alpine continues on. They think they can make it to the end. What about Limitless Draco? Same said with Awkward and Trent. They're so close to the end, they might as well stay out. Don't see too much reason, as there goes Clipzy to the inside. Limitless Draco darts into the pits. One thing the leader did not do, as that's going to put Kieran right on the back of him. I was about to have a drink, but this is about to get very heated between the Alpine and the Haas as we start another lap. Everyone but Ben on a set of intermediate. Is that Alpine going to be able to stay calm under the pressure and bring it home for the Alpine team? With a result like this, could be massive for the Alpine Championships. They're currently 7th and 8th, and drivers split by 1 point between them. Ben, of course, are leading, but Ben, with this result, would actually promote himself to about 5th or whatever. It would be a mega outcome if that Alpine can bring it home now. He's got 3 laps to do so. Hugo has retired from the race, but at the moment Clipzy, he's not catching enough to even threaten Ben for that race win. So that Alpine They've just gambled it right, but then also Trent has stayed out. If Limitless Draco don't catch 10 seconds in 2.5 laps, it's going to be 4th place for that Mercedes, which I think is what they really want to see in their constructors, where they currently sit 7 points off from Haas, and then even like 8 points off Racing Bulls. If things were to finish how they are, that gap between them and Racing Bulls will only be 6 points. So they need to think about numbers rather than favourable strategy. Yes, the Inters may have been favourable, but in that final 2 sectors, it's only a second found by Clipzy and Kieran over Ben. Ben's still got 7.5 seconds to lose each lap in order for any thought in his head that he could come second. But through Radion de la Rouge, it's Ben who's finding margins. He's gained a 10.5 in that first sector. The Haas dropping back. It's so improbable that they end up bagging a win now, as it's going to be the final 2 sectors where the Haas and the Alpine find time on Ben once again. You can already see 4 attempts have been found, but sector 1, it's hardly any difference, dry or intermediates, in terms of pace, as Clipzy has now dropped it under 14 seconds. At the end of this lap, for a chance to win, he needs to be within 7.5. You can see that's not going to happen. He didn't pit twice. He's going to end up getting DSQ'd. I don't believe that's the rule. I don't know. I'm a one-off. So, yeah. I think it's valid, as I haven't seen anything saying that is a rule. So, I don't know. But if things were to last how it is, I'll actually check the announcements channel to see. Mandatory 2-stop races. Fair enough. Yeah, that will mean Ben will take a DNF, so will Trent. I've just seen that. Yeah, thank you, Jay, for pointing it out. Of course, joys of being one off. But yeah, Ben and Trent, they needed to have pit. Ben powers onto the final lap without a second stop. So he must end this race second. Well, 13th. And Trent will not bring home points, meaning it will be Clipzy, Kieran and Draco all on your podium here today, as this is the fight for the win. Clipzy hangs on to 2nd place. Kieran not able to get himself past the Haas, as there will be quite a few questions raised after the event regarding the 2-stoppers. As now Kieran, he's only got about half a lap to go for move here. Will the Alpine think it's worth doing, or are they going to have to settle home and take a P2 here in Spa? They now head into Stavelot for the final time of this race. Ben heading up into Blanchimont, but he will not be classified, as it will be an Alpine 1-3 on track by looks of it, unless there's a move into this final corner. Kieran, not close enough in my eyes, but you never know with drivers these days. However, out the final corner, it's going to be Ben who takes your checkered flag. Clipzy, however, is going to be your race winner, with Kieran taking home 2nd place. And then Trent, he would be 4th if 2 stops weren't mandated, but as they are, it will be P4 for Chimp, as Limitless Draco will take that final podium spot. Chimp will take 4th. Camper, current championship leader, may not be anymore with that 7th. Mikael very close to losing place to Lucas. over the line. So let's actually tune in with drivers chat in paddock. Yeah, there's some people bringing up the Ben over the over the mandated 2-stop. He's realised. Constella says, guy takes me out and then bottles P1. What a joke. And Ben claiming he's forgot. Yeah. Your race winner. Yeah, it may be Ben on track, but it's Clipzy who takes the win for Haas, as they will take victorious. A fairly easy win. The Haas dominated most of this race. So your final results will not be Ben winning. It'll be Clipzy, then it's Kieran, then it's Limitless Draco in 3rd, Chimp 4th, Camper 5th, Mikael 6th, Lucas 7th, Jenga in 8th, Paul in 9th, Chesney 10th, Awkward 11th. Then it's going to be Ben and Trent 12th and 13th, Hugo 14th, Harry 15th, Kookaburra 16th, Finn 17th, Slicks 18th, and Constella 19th. For those who have enjoyed, do follow me. It's free. But yeah, you may see me here again. But for now, that's me. Goodbye.